And all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of McCandless Planning Commission meeting of June 4, 2024. We have two items on the agenda, two main items. First, we have the Rachel Parson Eco Village preliminary final land development application. And I'm assuming we have a presentation. You are ready to present.
I'm Stephanie Daines. I live at 5132 Friendship Avenue in Pittsburgh. I am project manager for this project. It's a pleasure to be here again after we had the rezoning. We have submitted the land development permit set and it's been reviewed by the township, by the fire marshal and Gateway engineers. I'd like to address in particular the comments of the fire marshal because we made a significant change to the site plan to accommodate the concerns that he raised. So what I have to show you tonight is a few slides showing you that change.
Is that the PowerPoint that you sent me that you want? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. There we go. So here, we want to go to the second page already, I'm guessing. Yes,
Yeah. Okay,
that's where you want to be?
sure.
Okay.
That's fine. What you see is the plan that was the basis for the submission that you have in front of you. The expectation was that we would ask for a waiver for the requirements of the International Fire Code for the 3 blue buildings, which are sprinklered. The fire marshal had suggested that a few months ago, but he told us that upon reflection, he was not comfortable with granting that exception and suggested that we should modify our plan. RJ, if you might look at the next plan. All of the buildings now are within 150 feet of the driveway, which is the fire access lane. We moved those 3 buildings along that driveway on the western side. The driveway moved in closer into the property. But those are the extent of the changes. The other buildings, which were within the 150 feet requirement, are still there. And there's a last slide, which simply shows the calculation of those distances. I met with Jeff Wisner last week to see whether this met his concerns, and he said that he felt that it did. He wanted to consult with the fire chief at the Peebles station, which he did, and he hasn't yet heard back from him. So we're waiting for that information, but I wanted to show this to you because I'm sure you have questions about the project, and you should know that we have committed to making this change in the interest of making sure that we meet all the public safety concerns. That's really all I wanted to say, but I'm happy to answer questions.
So with this change now, sprinkle buildings, is that correct? Does that eliminate the need for sprinkling the
Yes,
buildings?
it does.
Can I suggest one thing? Gateway had a bunch of comments.
Yeah.
Can
go through the gateway comments and see kind of where we are on those? Would that be appropriate?
It's,
Well, it seemed like there was a long list.
Yeah, they're not resolved tonight, so.
yeah, I can tell you that our engineers have gone through them and have a response to them, but we have not resubmitted the drawings yet. So
Well, I assume this change will cause some other ripple
That's-
effect
yeah.
that changes
exactly,
to the plan,
but any of those comments that were made
right?
at this point that are not affected by this change will be accommodated by the labeling or any other changes that were required in the drawings. There wasn't anything that we didn't feel we could meet.
Can I ask a couple of just over? The access drives, I'm assuming the fire lane is accessing off the current opening curb cut.
That's right.
Okay. The parking lot, is that opposite the Cumberland Crossing
Yes.
driveway? Because it isn't evident from your drawings.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then the traffic, I know they gave us traffic counts for entering and exiting, and you've asked that they be updated with the latest ITE numbers, but do we know what the volumes are on the roads and if there's any, I mean,
Well, I mean, in terms of our Mike Haberman, our traffic engineer. Did a review of the plan, and Mike's comments are incorporated into the letter. A development of this size, the trips are not gonna be significant, they're insignificant. Our concern is more of safe and adequate site distance to get into the property.
And the
how
guide rail.
How the guide rails
Yeah.
exist and so forth, so yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about the abundance of traffic.
the other question I had was, and it wasn't clear to me from reading the engineering studies, the soils information and the borings and RIA's report. Are these buildings on slab?
Yes,
Okay. It seemed to indicate that, but
thank you. Yes.
I understand that the engineer is still working through the gateway comment letter. Just to clarify on that piece, you said that there were no comments that were concerning. There were a number of comments, for example, the cul-de-sac being at the end of the fire access road, the sidewalk, the location of the infiltration basins that could potentially require waivers. Are all those being addressed so that waivers are not going to be requested, or are there any waivers that are going to be needed?
I understand that we will request modifications.
Yeah, I'll chime in a little bit here because we spoke about these briefly. The cul-de-sac and hammerhead issue, we've already talked to the fire marshal about that like months ago. And he's okay with the hammerhead, at least last time I spoke to him, he was. So that satisfies the fire access requirements, but of course our new Saldo now says, I mean, even the old code might have said cul-de-sacs only, to be honest, but that's a modification request, and I personally don't see a problem with it as long as all of the turning templates work, which, as far as we know, they do. So that seems like a pretty reasonable one. The sidewalks are a bit tricky just because there's not really a real road here, and there's also no public frontage because of that bizarro little, 3 or 4 foot strip between this property and Cumberland. So technically they don't actually have a requirement to build a street sidewalk, but those are comments that always get put like in the general section of this letter. So,
how about recreation?
So recreation, you have a lot of options under the pros, as we now call it.
Yeah.
And so for one, there's a ton of passive open space that, from what I understand, they're willing to dedicate.
That was the
most of
question.
The land.
It'll be,
Yeah.
it'll be deed restricted or whatever easement
Absolutely.
for,
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
we were literally just talking about this, before the meeting started, that probably the best way to do it, since there is not a subdivision here, there's not a subdivision plan that needs to get recorded. But recording the land development plan with those deed restrictions is probably the way to go to ensure that that, you know, stays with the title of the property. I also would say, I mean, without actually having looked at the numbers, I think they might even be able to use the community gathering
Yep.
accessory structure for active, you know, recreation, community space. So either way, you know, like you've got so much land here that I'm sure you'll
Right,
need it,
just
but it
need to
just
be
needs to
addressed.
shown.
Yeah,
Yes. So those comments of, we should get the trail detail for, you know, the walking paths and whatnot, but for the most part, the sidewalk, that comment number 10 is addressed just because they don't have a road.
So is the fire access road drive? Is that gonna have a gate or a chain or something on it to restrict access?
That's how
There's-
deliveries would come in too, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
But there's really no need for that because everyone parks in the parking lot.
I'm just looking at other people driving down who are curious and on the road or whatever. Cause it's only a 1 lane wide road, correct?
12 feet. 20 feet.
Yeah, it has to be
It's
20 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's 20
So-
feet with a turf, 4 feet of turf on each.
Right, I mean, you're gonna be hustling and squeezing if there's
Yeah.
2 of you coming down, you know, but I mean, maybe that's something that if the sisters would agree to just like not a throughway, like private community, something
Yeah,
like
some
that.
sign or something, cause otherwise I'm afraid you're gonna have sightseers that'll just be.
That's true, you might, but I mean, there's a turnaround at the, well, though, yeah. The
We'll
width
put
for
a,
the
we'll
2
put a
cars.
sign up there.
Yeah.
You know.
Shelley, you had a comment earlier?
Thank you, Dan. It was answered. I was gonna ask about the hammerhead versus the cul-de-sac and what the fire marshal thought about it.
So,
Can I, actually,
Yeah.
there was one thing, and I can't actually find the plan page right now that talks about it, but where on your plans you showed the roadway versus the which is hard surface asphalt, I think, with the turf 4-foot shoulders.
Mhm.
On the, I think it's actually something that's on your legend, indicates it can be used for parking. But I think I remember from your first, now maybe a delivery truck might pull off.
Right, I mean.
But-
conceivably,
But absolutely, the car parking, you know,
is not
for
there.
the residents is not intended at all to be anywhere along there.
No.
Okay.
was it more intended that the turf would be substantial enough that it could be?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so I think that's what
Yeah,
the,
it's underlaying. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not
it's-
just.
It's got that
planted
grid
grass.
that
Yeah.
can support a fire truck.
I couldn't find the rain gardens. There were too many lines on the map. There are 3?
There's actually small rain gardens along the north. You'll see a whole series of small triangular shapes that come down that slope.
Coming out of the
It's not
wetland?
on any of these maps, so
It's
I can-
plan sheet C422.
I can try to open the plan set, however, it is a bit beefy for my laptop. So I don't know if it'll render. We'll see if I can pull it up on the screen here.
so there are,
For those little triangles?
yes,
Yeah.
there
Oh, I was expecting something, sorry.
there are many small ones throughout the site, which is an advisable strategy.
Mhm.
It's so that the water is absorbed close to where it lands.
I have one in my front yard to take care of PennDOT's runoff from Perry Highway, Perrymont Road.
Sean, you said it was
C422.
Yeah.
Is what I was looking at.
I'll just bring it up on the screen so we have it for the video.
I found it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could ask, You know, with the change, to avoid the fire risk,
The little guy.
are there any other
Right.
consequences of
It's like
increasing the density
Oh.
then?
Recording.
By shifting those areas to the, I guess, to, to the left?
The,
You had the density was spread out, now you're becoming more compressed. Are there any consequences you have to
the,
deal with that?
well, the thing that I was concerned about was the relationship to the sisters and their view of the woods. And so before we took this to the fire marshal, I had a meeting with the sisters to see whether they had any concerns about it. But they were actually very supportive of this move. They felt that it was good and it saves another 28 trees by taking the buildings out of the center. It moves more of the development away from the Knoll Street neighbors, which we thought was a good thing. So that was my concern, was about the sisters. The other question that came up right away is, well, how does this affect the stormwater? Because of course, that has to be recalculated now, but our engineers are confident that they have the space to provide new rain gardens. So just in a
To
little
capture-
different place, yeah.
Okay, I mean, it really compresses.
Yeah.
Your site layout from what you had before.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Does it have more of an impact on the wetland? Are you moving?
It's better.
It's better.
It's
I think
moving
that's over
everything
here is
away.
where-
We were pretty
issue.
close to one edge of the upper wetland,
Mhm.
and now we've relieved that whole situation. So the ground around that wetland stays as is, and we can just eventually do more restoration in that area.
What provisions are we making for visitor parking?
There is a 35 space lot on the sister's property that we have an easement for, that was granted as a zoning variance. So we provide plenty of visitor parking there. That will be identified as the place where any visitor coming can park.
And access from that to this is via what?
They have driveways, so it's just walking.
So they walk from the sisters parking lot over to this location
That's right.
on a sidewalk?
It's on a driveway, which is what the sisters use all the time as their sidewalk. Because there is essentially no vehicles on that part of the
So
campus.
the sisters driveway goes from their parking lot all the way to this location.
Right.
I think this spur.
Yes, it connects
Down
right
there,
there.
that's part of it.
Yeah.
Is that incorporated on any of the plans, the outside
Yeah,
parking area?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it might be
I'm-
a good idea to add a sheet.
I will be
shows
happy
stuff
to
like
do that.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that would help.
So it's actually
clarify.
down here, not up there?
Yeah, the sister, their
Yeah,
lot
theirs
is
is
on their
up there.
property is here, but the sister, like, imagine this is flat. Here.
And the 35 spaces, that will be jointly used by the sisters? No,
No, it is dedicated.
strictly for your
Strictly,
folks.
right. The sisters have approximately 70 extra spaces.
In addition to these 35.
Are the additional 35 near the maintenance spots that are down there?
Exactly, behind the maintenance garage.
So you'll have visitors with maintenance trucks back and forth.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
Fairly
There-
big garage back there.
Yes, but there's access. There's a parking lot that goes lower and then there's an upper access directly to the
Yeah.
garages.
Yeah, this may be helpful
Yeah.
to pull up on GIS.
We're gonna pull up an aerial because I'm not sure what's going on either.
It's not weird when you see it. just
Yeah.
From having seen it for the zoning hearing board, but I'll get something.
Yeah.
up on the screen
Yeah.
here.
And we have been parking there with the sisters' approval for the last 4 months as we bring visitors to the site. We've never had any maintenance vehicle there at the time, you know, using the garage. I'm sure they do, but it's not a regular everyday activity.
Sorry, I just have to get through my highly organized layers of files.
Just the name.
Please continue while I do this, though.
Yeah.
Ah, here we go. Okay. So this is. All my windows look the same at this point. This is one of the exhibits that they provided the zoning hearing board. As part of that appeal for the sisters. Parking analysis. So this aqua, I guess I'd call it.
Telia.
Yeah,
Just.
blue. This blue delineated area, is the parking lot basically that the sisters will be reserving for this use.
So they'll walk along that small road,
Mhm.
goes up there.
Looks like here, over to here, and then into the property over here.
So that's a bridge or a cul-de-sac or something over the, I mean, a culvert over the stream
Mhm.
there, okay. Existing one?
As far as I know.
Yeah.
Good on this one, or do we want me to keep it up for any longer?
Will there be a community golf cart?
Yes,
It'll
in
bring
case somebody
people over.
sprains their leg or buys a lot of groceries or whatever. We have
Yeah, I was
carts.
gonna say there's gonna have to be, there's a fair distance from that parking lot to the property.
But that's not the everyday use, as I say,
Yeah,
that's
sure.
kind of for
But if
visitors,
you had guests or something, or a
Right.
party or something like that, you would have to
right?
bring people over.
Need coolers.
Trick or
Yeah,
treaters.
yeah,
Yeah, trick or treaters. Talk about, that'd be a really good haunted woods setup, huh?
Cross country season.
That's true.
Comments?
It's an income.
I'm not sure what it is we're needing to do tonight because
Table.
Yeah,
Yeah.
table it, okay, because it seems like there's
a lot of
a
outstanding.
number of outstanding issues.
I mean,
I
given
did not
the
put a
change,
tentative
they're gonna
motion
have-
on the agenda for a reason.
they're gonna have to reincorporate that, and plus they have all our initial comments, so hopefully it'll.
Yeah.
We'll get a submission that,
that's right.
yeah, I mean, no offense to the plan preparers. But the plans are kind of complicated to follow along. I think that's some of the, maybe if possible, if I could just make a suggestion. Is just that the overall plans, before they get into the breaking them apart, might be more helpful.
We were literally like.
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
talking
Yeah.
about
I
that.
just see a plan
Yeah.
that showed me everything.
I agree, I
Yeah.
agree.
That would be helpful.
I was like whipping through this, trying to.
Like, and the tree symbology, like I understand it's important because the logic of the plan does not work without understanding where the trees are or are not. But if there are any treats in which those symbols can be pulled, because they all render one at a time when you open them in PDF, which is intense. So, you know, keep them where you absolutely have to, but if you can,
Okay,
yeah. That
Or you
would-
could turn them off on certain layers on
Yeah.
certain sheets.
I was that's more
Or
advanced
gray
than I even
tone or
am.
something.
on
When
Adobe.
you would, I mean, like, it might give us, yeah, it might give us some more clarity. I know the trees are important, but,
Yeah,
you know, it would give more clarity that maybe they're not on.
maybe a sheet with and then a sheet without, so you
Yeah.
can kind of dig into what you want to see.
Good
Does
idea.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely,
You see the improvements, they're clearer.
Yeah.
yeah. And my computer's less
Right.
than yours,
This is
so.
supposed to be able to run GIS, so there's some decent power there.
Can you give a summary of where this project stands among the sales,
Oh, sure.
projected timeline, when, assuming things get approved?
That's Yes, we have 27 buyers. We have 8 households who are considering purchase. There's a process that involves getting to know other people in the community before you decide that this is the right thing for you. So we have a number who have said they are interested in purchasing a unit. And it's just a matter of making that final commitment. We are intending to get started in construction as quickly as possible once we get approval from the town council. And we have the building panels ready to ship from the factory in Baltimore. So they will be, and we've worked with the sisters on layout space. So they will come up and their installation crew will work with our local contractor to assemble the units as soon as the foundations and slabs are done. So it'll take about 2 months to get the utilities and the foundations, the final grading and the slabs prepared. Not all the slabs, just the first few. Will probably start with the southeast cluster and work our way back. And so those units will be under construction as soon as those slabs are prepared. And the process is about 4 months per building. And we have a very good relationship with Dollar Bank. They are waiting for this process in order to start their underwriting. And they offered us a construction loan last year, so they're going to update that. So that's, let's see. Yeah, and we have a contractor, we have alternative pricing going on right now. And this new site plan we think is going to help the pricing. So we'll get the final pricing in the next 3 weeks.
You have a site contractor selected or just a general contractor?
We have 2 site contractors bidding right now, but we have the general
Who's
contractor,
in general?
Dean Hart.
No, I'm not familiar with them.
Yeah, they do upscale residential work, so they're very good at detail. And since all of the basic construction is done in the factory, it's really their job is the finishing.
Sure.
So they're a good match for us.
And it's all condominium sales, correct?
That's right.
And the condominium is inside the walls? I
That's
mean,
right.
okay.
And your electrical utilities underground?
Yes.
I think we require.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we've been working with Duquesne Light.
All right, any other comments? Then I guess we need a motion to table.
So moved.
All in
Okay.
favor?
I-
Who called
Opposed?
number 2?
Well, it was
Brandon,
Oh, Brent, oh, okay, I got number 1 for him. All right, who was the first one? Al, all right. A race
I
to
didn't
the
cite
table.
you.
All right.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are tabled till the next time and hopefully these items will be addressed.
Thank you. Thank you
Yep.
very much for your time and your questions.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. We find ourselves here again.
All right. Item number 2, tattoo piercing parlor zoning ordinance amendment discussion. No presentation, I suppose, so. Any comments or discussion from,
my comments from the last meeting hold.
I would appreciate if you would,
Go through them again?
well, yeah.
Okay, my major concern is that the, tattoo parlors should not be permitted in the neighborhood of MN.
That is the one you said.
Yeah, MN. primarily because of the intent for that district, the way it's described is for types of uses that the surrounding residents might need, and it's set up to be walkable and all of that. So definitely not have AP in that column. And then I also being disheartened by the fact that the state health department, the county health department, no one controls or has any regulations for tattoo parlors, with the exception of state law that says minors would have to have parental consent, I believe it says in writing, in order to have a tattoo. Therefore, I would suggest that the section that is related to locating, not be completely struck, but that we still have some guidelines, 250 feet, whatever, from the use, the structure, whatever that the use is in, to playgrounds and schools and places where minors would be located, congregating. That was my primary comment.
So if I'm can summarize you were against adding the MN district
Correct.
and you wanted restrictions, setback restrictions, if you will, on the MU district.
On
Did I state that right?
three other, it's,
I think what you're saying is that the use regulations would apply to all permitted districts. You just are
Right.
recommending that a modified version of the existing use
use
regulation.
regulations. So not as proposed, which basically wipes out,
Right,
but leave it in place that the 200, I think it's a 250-foot setback,
yes.
be for parks and schools, well, residences, that isn't really, or churches, that wasn't, but parks and schools specifically. Because that is, where minors potentially would congregate.
Your recommendation would be to tie the setback just to the structure.
The stru-
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
to make it, so if you have a plaza
right,
that the tattoo parlor sits in, I'm not suggesting that the whole plaza needs to be
right.
250 feet, but that particular use,
Yeah.
wherever it resides in a structure, be 250 feet.
And I mean, if they do decide to keep that, but in a modified version, you know, assuming this gets passed. I mean, it definitely has to change just because the way that it's written now, just like when you actually really sit down and read it, you'd think that it's just, 250 setback, but setback from the building, but it's from the entire lot, which, you know, like you're saying, for large plazas or anything else. I mean, that's just with the way that McCandless developed over time, that would be very difficult to achieve. So we definitely need to edit
Mhm.
something about that, you know, but building would be a more sensible option if we keep it.
Am I correct that they would like to put this tattoo parlor in the MU, the building that they have selected is in the MU district?
That's correct.
Okay. And if I'm looking at the map correctly, the MU district in many, many instances adjoins the special district. In this case, I believe it does exactly. The school is right behind this building.
I
It's
would have
within a
to-
stone's
yeah.
throw.
I mean, I would have to look at an actual map, but yes, it's. close,
Okay,
for
and
sure.
in most of the special districts are schools. And
Yes,
so,
special is school, hospital, church.
so I don't see that the
Parks.
MU district, in my opinion, makes a lot of sense because of its adjoining proximity to the special districts. So my comment, first off, and I'll give my unfiltered comments on this. I don't agree with the premise in the proposal as written. It says, one of the whereases, the fourth whereas says, town council believes it to be in the best interest of the town to make additional amendments to the zoning ordinance to better reflect the needs of the town's residents as they relate. I don't believe that we have an overwhelming, there is not a groundswell to my knowledge of demand for new tattoo parlors. I think what we have here is a one-off situation where a resident would like, because of their ownership or interest in a building that happens to be not in the district that is currently permitted, they would like to expand this. And town council has written a resolution that does that and does it not only to the district that they have their building, but to others as well. My opinion is that the MC district, where the tattoo parlors are allowed, there's plenty of opportunities to put such a tattoo parlor in there. And given my observation that this appears to be a one-off scenario request, I am not in favor of amending zoning rules, zoning districts, zoning accesses for such a one-time or one-off scenario. So I am against it. I think there is plenty of room in the current MC where it's allowed. And I would suggest that it stay right there. And therefore I would vote against the proposal as written.
Couple follow-ups. One, I checked the distance from the school on the actual map.
The what?
The distance from
Oh,
the
okay.
school property. It's like 380 feet. So the 250, if we were going from structure only for a school, would fit that building. As written, it wouldn't because it was a
It's the-
residential lot as well, but I just want to throw out there because Dan, I appreciate that you read the whereas clauses. Most people don't. That's very boilerplate, so, you know, I understand it says it in that, you know, you can change a boilerplate thing for sure, but I just don't want anyone to think that like somebody really sat down and specifically drafted that sentence for this amendment, because that's just what you put in every zoning
That could be
ordinance,
fine.
whereas clause. Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you know, to be honest, a lot of zoning amendments are generated because one person asked one question. Like that is not unusual to see any ordinance get amended because somebody asked a council member something and they went, "Oh, that's a good point." But also I understand what you're saying, that this is not really a global change that might necessarily affect more than one constituent.
So I don't disagree with Dan's point. In that. Boilerplate as it may be in a recital,
Yes,
there's plenty of places in the canvas if one wants to put in a tattoo parlor. I'm sure they could certainly find a place. So I don't know that there's a real pressing need for allowing this use more broadly. However, when I take a look at the district use table and I look at, we'll say, other types of uses that at least have some legal barrier to entry, being gotta be 21 to drink, but 18 to buy a pack of smokes,
I think
have a
it's
letter
21
from
now, isn't it?
whatever it
Is
is.
it? Like.
Gotta have a letter from a parent for a tattoo. So we've got brew pub as a conditional use in the MN. And then it is permitted in MC, MU, and TC. We have drinking places, as interesting as that sounds, in the MN as a conditional use, not in MC, but is permitted in MU and TC. We have microbreweries, micro distilleries, and micro wineries. Conditional use in MN, permitted in MC, MU, and TC.
Don't forget the adult uses.
Oh, the only one on this chart is adult daycare. And that would be,
Yeah.
of the same type. I didn't go to the adult use. That's
Yeah, I mean,
not my
adult
thing.
uses is its own, I mean, it's a category of one.
I didn't get there, so.
Yeah.
And then we've got smoking places. Not authorized in the MN, but permitted in the MC, the MU, and the TC. So in terms of a general comparability of uses, I don't know that the ordinance as it stands now is consistent. And RG, tell me if I'm wrong about this one, but like brew pub, drinking places, smoking places, microbreweries, distilleries, I didn't see the proximity to certain use restriction associated with them
No,
that we have on tattoo.
that's correct.
And so the way I look at it is, I don't know that there's a particular justification for treating tattoo piercing parlors differently than these other types of uses. Do I think tattoo parlors should be authorized everywhere? No, but if we're going to allow smoking places as permitted uses in 3 districts and drinking places as permitted uses in 3, or in 2 of them in a conditional use in another, I just don't know what the rational distinction is to not broaden the areas where one could do tattoo and piercing. 'Cause I don't see that it's any worse in terms of a public policy from other similarly bar to entry places to walk in and out of for a service.
And I can at least add a little bit of context that the ones that have the conditional uses in MN, when we were discussing this section of the draft, that there are hourly limitations that, you know, because in theory, where MN is zoned is perhaps going to be more immediately related to a neighborhood. And so we just had basically noise concerns, you know, after hours. And I think that's the main condition on that conditional use.
It might also be parking and traffic because of their its closeness to neighborhoods. I usually
think-
you see that in these kinds of use, even if it was a smaller restaurant or something, you might see conditional use. I'm not sure about this, but just talking.
Yeah,
general
we, that's a good point to bring up, because it is relevant. I know that
The
in
lots
this
are so much
case,
smaller.
we just went for it because of the noise, you know, concern if they had like an outdoor area or something. But yes, there are also going to be lots that are more challenging when it comes to, I mean, those are the ones that you just say, all right, well, this is a use that can be more intense. And if it is right beside a neighborhood, it's reasonable to have that hearing checkpoint, you know, to have the opportunity to have that discussion. So in regards to the tattoo piercing parlor, the aspect that Steve brings up is presumably not present. You know, it's supposed to be. I
Fewer
mean,
folks.
I
You don't
don't
have-
know.
You don't have 50 people showing up for a piercing typically.
Yeah, so the intensity level is not there, but I think the character of age limitation relates, yes.
And Brenda, that was exactly my analysis on the other 3 districts, saying it would be appropriate is the types of uses that are allowed there. But MN, just because of the limited commercial uses that are allowed there, the character of that district, as it's described in the zoning, it just didn't seem to be as appropriate in that district.
I felt as if, because I think some good points were just made, but I kind of look at tattoo piercing parlor, not unlike smoking places or pawn shop or check cashing, maybe not the most attractive uses that you'd want in your neighborhood. But I don't actually, and I don't remember why, but I could get behind the idea of it fitting within an urban district and even a town center. I think it's just the MN part that is troublesome to me, but expanding it doesn't particularly bother me, but just I'm not happy about MN.
That I'll just be honest that when we put the amendment together, I just, you know, asked the decision makers if they had any restriction preferences on districts, and they said no. So that is how it was prepared that way.
What, you know, and the informal, unscientific, whatever asterisk I can put to it, you know, poll, and I'd asked people around that I know in my neighborhood, and they kind of sound like you, they went to the equivalency. And they looked at the table, and the tattoo piercing parlor is not equivalent to what we have other with the neighborhood services, the eating places and other, it's not equivalent. And then the appearance was kind of interesting. 2 people said, so what's the deal? Right? What's the deal going on here? Right? Because that's what they read into it, kind of, you know, I think what you saw into it. So I would just, share that feedback. And I have the same concerns with the neighborhood center. So I would not support it as written.
The message that I am charged to carry back to all of you from town council is that they're thinking when they, approve the amendment, advertisement, the draft, whatever, is that they do not want to think of this type of establishment as an adult adjacent use. Age limit, understood that that's there. But that, we didn't want to go so far as to simply roll it into the neighborhood service umbrella category, because that would trigger certain circumstances, like, for example, putting it in the list of types of home occupations you can have, and that was a little too far than they wanted to go. That was like the least restrictive option considered, but so they wanted to keep it listed as a separate use so that it did not open it up to be a home business type. But that other than that, they did not see it as distinct from a service business. And so that's why the amendment was sent down here that way. Obviously, I'll, provide your comments, and I kind of gave a brief overview of what we had talked about last meeting, at my report that I make every month to council. So, they're aware of the initial comments. Obviously, I will carry these. I mean, I don't know that we're done with the discussion. I'm not cutting it off or anything, but I'll convey the feeling, just kind of sharing back how we got here in the first place in their view.
Any other comments?
Just that I also agree with you, Dan, that from what I understand is that this was, I would say to anyone coming, wanting to, bring in a new business, that if it's not, there's lots of different places you can put it. You don't put the cart before the horse. I want this space, and now I want the town to modify its, brand new zoning to accommodate that.
I would say that I don't really have any issues with tattoo or piercing parlors in general. I think some of the comments about having them in the neighborhood center is potentially troubling are valid. I more so have an issue with the perceived favoritism here and the one-off nature of this for a particular person who wants to have a particular space for a particular use and amending the entire ordinance accordingly. That I can't get behind.
Yeah, it's important to remember, and we talked about this at the council level as well. This was brought to our attention by an individual who wants to open a business. But we must, and we have to consider this ordinance in the context of, but this is available to anyone. This is not case by case. It's not a conversation about, well, this is a really upscale business, or this is this or that. I mean, that's not, once you open that box, you don't put it back in.
But to that point, you can currently go into the corridor district and open up a tattoo parlor. So
I mean, setback issue notwithstanding,
sure,
but that's.
but it's not like we banned tattoo parlors.
That
from
is
town.
correct. We could not do.
So just to clarify that.
Yes, you are absolutely correct.
Do you need an actual motion on this proposal or?
Well, so here's how I'll say it. You are not required to make a motion. This is the last meeting before the public hearing, and what we are legally required to do by state process is give the planning commission at least 30 days to express an opinion before the public hearing date. So you can choose to not vote on it, but this is your last opportunity to do so before the public hearing record is open.
So the question is there a motion that would even pass?
Well,
Oh,
that's,
we
yeah.
jumped it. Yeah.
The discussion begins, right?
Well, isn't there really just there's three real issues. One is what you brought up first, which there does need to be, if I heard you correctly, we need to modify this
the
Regardless.
setbacks,
The
yes.
setback,
yeah,
yeah,
right.
setback
There,
language.
there
definitely.
is a modification
Yep.
that is just needs to be done
Yeah.
because it doesn't fit any of the.
I wouldn't say any because that would be exclusive, however, it would be.
Well,
challenging.
So let's just say there was a, I don't want to say mistake, but there's an improvement that's needed,
Yeah,
a modification that's needed, that's more what's related to the setback.
a factor of our map that I found very surprising once I did the granular math. That's what we'll call it.
Okay, and then I think there's the choices are, is there potential objections in a motion to expanding the use to any other districts? Is it only the MN district? But okay for the urban and town center? Or, and last but not least, is voting
Down
to. Well, I don't think we can do that in good faith because of what we need to do with,
I'm
because
just saying, there's
well,
representatives that would.
the ordinance does need at least a cleanup
Yeah.
modification. At the very least. And this would be the time to do it.
Yeah,
And then-
recommending certain changes to the
Right.
ordinance and if changes are made, recommending approval is an option. that you
Yeah,
can
and
take.
to Ann's point, yes, you could vote just no, or you could vote yes.
Right.
And those in between things, I think is,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to vote at all? And if you do,
Right. Are there
which
modifications?
of those things
Right.
do you
Yeah.
want to entertain in?
Yeah, I think we should
Emotions.
vote. I mean, we should give council, that's our job, is to give them our advice on planning impacts for the community. So I would be willing to make a motion.
We can have multiple motions, I presume,
Uh,
to go before the.
We'll see what passes and what goes down.
So maybe the way to do this that is the least challenging for the sanity of minutes, right? Because if you can like throw a motion out, but you've got to address the motion on the table before you move on to
Mhm.
another one, and that can get very confusing. So here is my suggestion, and Steve, jump in if I am astray, please. My suggestion would be we take the topics of discussion that Shelley just outlined, because those are the different moving parts of this amendment. The group discusses what they are in favor of for each of those topics. And then whatever the majority opinion is for each of those topics could be the content of the motion made. Steve,
I was going to simplify it even further.
please do.
And well, I was just going to say, my suggestion would be just to do it up or down. And then in the minutes, we can list all of these concerns that were raised by the group and allow council to consider whether or not after the public hearing, they'd like to tweak the amendment the amendment to the ordinance or not. Because I think all of the issues that were raised are valid, but I don't think you need 4 of them for council. You don't need a majority for council to consider them or not. I think they're all valid. It's just like if we're throwing out suggestions to developers when they come forward. Those are all valuable suggestions. So that's my suggestion, to try to make it smoother, quicker. But
I
whatever
think that's a reasonable way to do the vote. For my purposes of being the communicator and trying to figure out like what does council want to do with this information, I think it would be helpful for me to understand if there is any sort of consensus on how you all would feel about an amended amendment. Like what
Can we just-
would you want to see?
Can we just do a show of hands on who would approve?
Yes,
Who
that's-
would
you-
recommend the use reg table be modified to permit tattoo parlors as proposed? And or who would, because the only thing I'm hearing, well, the major thing I'm hearing is not in the MN.
Yeah.
So who would be in favor of tattoo parlors being in the other 3 starting in 1, the other 2 commercial districts?
Yeah.
So just section 1 of the proposed ordinance.
Mhm.
which is the use table alone.
Correct,
And then section 2 would be the red lines.
correct.
Sounds reasonable.
So maybe. And I, like, you all should make whatever motion you're comfortable with and you like, but at this point, we're just talking about like my notes and how do I organize the thoughts that came out of this meeting, right? So, okay, for anybody who would be okay with permitted use in MC, MU, and TC, which is as drafted except minus MN, can I get hands?
Those in favor?
Yes. Okay, so 2 people like MCMU and TC. Let's start down here. What's the other option?
Well, as this is currently written, I think we should just keep it in the corridor district.
Okay.
I don't think we should expand it out there. I think there's plenty of opportunities there. I think there's plenty of places they can put it there. And it doesn't, excuse the expression, bastardize a little bit of the zoning that we just did. So I'm concerned about that, but I think the corridor district suffice.
Okay. Corridor only, show of hands. Got 4, okay. Brendan, what do you think?
No MN. I'd keep the corridor as is. And then I would probably go a conditional use. Anything in the MU and the TC with at least a couple objective criteria to keep it a say a higher class type place. Then we can't necessarily regulate.
That one would be hard.
No, you could have, you know, some fairly easy to accomplish requirements of, you know, like appropriate signage, things like that.
Oh, I
to-
see, yeah.
Yeah, like we did, like, I don't know how it went with the tow truck place, but like, you know, show us a sign, you know, give us a plan,
Gotcha.
jump through some things beyond saying there's a public hearing and there's no criteria, so I'm good to go.
Yeah,
So that would be my thought.
okay,
I'm changing to his team.
you
I
like
think
that.
that was very thoughtful and more appropriate.
We have, it's okay, I've got my crazy notes here.
Sorry.
Okay, that is fine, okay. You're sticking with MCMUTC permitted? Okay, okay,
Just because of the other uses that are permitted in those districts.
got which districts down? Okay, setbacks from certain uses. I think we're all in agreement, just because it like needs to happen, that we should at the very least change the setback measurement from lot line to structure that the business is within. Is that?
Yep.
Everyone's cool with that? Okay, great.
How
That's
does that
good.
work in a strip mall?
Well, I would measure from the lease line.
Of the individual unit,
Yes.
but that would be structured.
Well, you know, that's a fair point. I guess we could specify. Which would you prefer?
Well, something it's consistent where everyone knows what it's going to be. So either structure and or outside boundaries of the occupied space.
For subdivided structures, a lease line.
Something like that, where you got like a,
Right.
yeah, like McIntyre Square or something like that.
Right. Yeah, we could, I mean, that's something that I don't think you would have to pretzel yourself too badly to write into a code, like, you know, either from
The lease line.
from the structure or on multi-tenant structures from the lease line of the occupied space. Okay, that could be written. So definitely remove setback from lot line. Does everybody like the way that Brendan just described setback from structure?
I'm
Okay.
good with that.
Okay, that one's easy. 250 feet. Do we still like it? Do we think it's too much? Do we think it's not enough? I think it's probably at least enough. In my opinion, that's a pretty deep setback, but
What is
Um,
liquor store? I should know this,
that's
because I used to get liquor licenses, but
Let's see.
I thought it was 500 feet from a daycare or a school or a church.
It could be. I wonder if we actually just.
I,
have that
I
in
didn't think there were any
surveys.
setbacks for liquor.
Well, let me.
Have
let
a
me
liquor
check.
license, there sure are.
Well, the liquor license, but not in the zoning.
Oh, no,
No.
there isn't. I was just simply
Yeah.
offering that up, is it when she asked,
Yeah.
was it too little, or too much? A comparable.
No, okay, so here we go. Beer, wine and liquor sales are considered a standard retail use.
Yeah.
So there's, I don't know about.
Getting a
If there's a,
license.
you know.
No,
if
it's,
there's a
and then I don't mean to confuse you.
Yeah.
It's not in our ordinance. It's,
Right,
it's a
right.
state law requirement.
Right, like I do not know what that is off the top of my
Yeah.
head, but if we're at least comparing like to like within the code, you know,
Yeah.
that's, we don't additionally
that's
influence
fine.
that.
I personally think probably 250 is reasonable.
I mean, there
It's
are a lot
half
of,
the adult use.
there are a lot of commercial buildings that can achieve that, so, yeah.
I don't think it's a big detraction from finding a location.
Okay, no objections to 250? Okay.
250 good.
Okay, now, the last component of that is the restricted uses. Right now, it's pretty broad, and that was definitely something that we inherited. Steve,
It's 300 feet. I just looked it up.
for liquors licenses,
Yeah, to Shelley's point.
got it, thank you.
So that's a bar or any liquor sales?
Yeah, if you're a licensed premise, it has to be at least 300 feet away from the school. Yeah.
Okay. And is it
Thanks,
just
Steve.
schools?
In schools,
No, it's like churches, things,
Yeah.
schools, that sort
all
of
those
daycare.
things.
I'm
Very
drilling into,
consistent with what we have in here as to our list.
yeah, this is the last, I guess, chunk of this bit of the discussion of the ordinance.
There's a similar list in the medical marijuana ordinance. It kind of.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of them are. The one that kind of like has to go is the residences.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the
Um,
residents going.
Yeah, cause that is going to be the real challenge to achieve in any district, because we just have so little area that is. Two commercial properties deep before you hit a neighborhood. Almost everything is one commercial property on each side of a main thoroughfare, basically, so.
That could make it exclusionary, which is not good.
Right,
Right.
we don't want to be there, so I would say that at the least we need to remove. Residential and lodging use from that additional setback category, but the other. The other pieces that we have in this are religious institution. Doctor's offices, hospitals, schools. Facilities attended by minors, so like camp, athletic league, park.
Daycare.
Daycare. And then of course parks or other tattoo and piercing parlors. And we do have a few uses that have to be a certain distance away from each other, so that's at least consistent with other types of uses in the code. So out of that menu, is there anything that anyone would like to remove?
I could get rid of medical clinic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Medical office,
yeah,
Yeah.
hospital.
I would agree with that.
Is everyone on board with that? Okay. Residential. And medical. Okay, I think we've hit every aspect of what's on the table, but please tell me if I'm leaving anything out.
Have we agreed, I've lost track, that as written, none of us have agreed to it as written?
Well, no. but,
Correct.
You're okay with it as written?
No.
No, no, I think we all agreed that as written, none of us agreed.
We should probably pass a motion saying
Don't
Yeah.
recommend
we
it.
don't
I mean,
recommend it
Steve had
as
mentioned an
written.
up or down. To me, that was,
Right.
that's one of the ones that we could
That's
easily.
perfectly fine
Yeah.
if you want to.
And we would suggest modifications.
Right, and then,
RJ has all the data there and we're.
Yeah,
good to go.
I do.
so can I have a motion to accept the resolution as written?
So moved.
So moved by Brandon, second. Second by Sean. Okay, all in favor of not, it's double negative here.
No,
All in
it's,
favor-
yeah, you're right. It's.
Yeah.
accepted. So you all vote no.
Yeah,
Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All in favor of accepting it as written? Say aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Opposed?
There we go.
Notes for myself, he detailed change recommendations. Okay, I will deliver a summary of your comments.
Good luck.
At the, they're really not bad, like it only took me 5 lines on a page and I write big, you know, so. But anyway, I will present them as part of the discussion at the public hearing, which will be occurring on June 24th. As part of the normal.
Do you present those so that the public hears what the comments were?
All of the above.
All right, next item on the agenda, approval of the May 7, 2024 minutes. Any changes, edits, comments, minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the May 7 minutes? Ann and Al, seconds, all in favor of approving the May 7 minutes?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
Kelly abstains. And we have room for general public comment, but I don't believe we've got any general public. So adjourn, let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
second from Shelley, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Just for diversity, we should have general public and admiral public.
No. Leave the military out of this.